venture capital isn't like, oh, you just go to school and then you get the job, or it is an apprenticeship job and you don't really get credibility or people won't invest in you. And it's not even just like, do you know how to make an investment? Do you know the right people? Do you have a good reputation with the right people? And when I say the right people, I'm not talking about the flashy celebrity. I'm talking about somebody who's been in a guy who's a baby boomer, who's been a VC. Do they know that you've put in the time? Mm-hmm. How badly do you want it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Carried Away, where I feature game changers, thought leaders, disruptors, women who are out there as a force to make change in our beautiful world. With me today is Renata Merino, and we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is money and investing. So welcome, gorgeous. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm so glad Catherine Gray introduced us. Catherine Gray, I feel like, is the Kevin Bacon of entrepreneurs. It's like, how many degrees are you away from Catherine Gray?
She's amazing. She is unbelievable. And can't wait. My podcast with her is coming out in September. So I'm really excited.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this will probably be out around that time too. So it's a two for everybody. After you listen to this, I want you to go listen to Invest in Her, Catherine Gray's episode with Renata. Yay. Well, then let's change it up a little bit, because I know she didn't ask you this, which your path into venture capital, kind of where you are today. If I would have asked 11-year-old you what you wanted to be when you grow up, is this what you would have said, a venture capitalist?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I think 11-year-old me, and I actually just wrote about this in my book. I'm writing a book that's coming out probably early next year. The chapter I was writing this morning was about finding your soul purpose. And I think all of us as women and men, we're always wanting to know, what's our life purpose? What's our soul purpose? And I think right around that age, that's when I was having some trouble reading comprehension. And my mom was my advocate for taking me out of the school that I was in and kind of pleading to my dad, let's put her in private school where she has a smaller, some more attention in reading. And I think with girls, especially with confidence, and I have a girl, a little girl, whatever. And, we want them to have confidence and build confidence early. And that's when the 11-year-old me was put into an all girls school, middle school. And that's where I really started having a voice. So I think at that age, I just wanted to be confident. And I think that was the first, if I had to talk to my 11-year-old self, I just want to be confident in who I am and feeling comfortable in my skin.
Wow. So you went to an all girls middle school, and, we hear about, all the drama and everything that's happening. Was it a supportive community? Was there any competition between the girls?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I do see that a lot. I think for me, I went to a Sacred Heart school. So it was Newton Country Day School of the Sacred Heart in Newton, Mass. And it's part of a global network of women. And it's taught by, religious nuns and also just independents. But it was really the 5 goals of the Sacred Heart was really fostering a sense of community. And I think the type of women, girls that they, at the time, and I'm sure now, admit is part of the application process is, are you a team player? Are you an individual? I mean, of course, you're going to have some catty things happen in middle school and high school. But I think overall, the things that we focused on was community service, working together. And, I was a big leader on the soccer field in sports and lacrosse. So I think that was a big part of kind of my identity and leading on the soccer field or on the lacrosse field. And I was pretty independent. I mean, how you don't know how you're going to be. I was really into my own academics and sports, not really into the social scene, maybe kind of nerdy, sporty.
Sure.
So I wasn't in the drama scene.
Yeah.
So some people get all wrapped up in the drama. I wasn't. I was more like, okay, I need to do well in school. I'm really lucky to be here. My parents are sacrificing, to put me here. And I was just more kind of an independent, had a couple girlfriends, but not into the scene.
Right. That sounds like me. Actually, yeah. You were more sporty spice. I get it.
Sporty spice, definitely.
I
Yeah,
love
kind of.
that.
And I think there's actually a statistic out there. I don't know who reported this, but I think it's female soccer players. There's a higher percentage of CEOs that were former female soccer players. And I think it has a lot to do with leadership, communication, working with different, skill sets, working together and collaborating yeah. And you just have to be tough. You have to be tough.
Yeah. Did you watch the World Cup at all?
I watched a little, not a lot, but they made it pretty far, but I mean, it's nice to see some of the older players, the ones that are retired, supporting the younger players. Yeah. I think it's incredible.
I think my son plays soccer, so we watched the World Cup and everything. And he was a little devastated that they were out already, but I said, it's a new team. It's a lot of newbies and some retiring. Megan, Rapona's retiring and she's fantastic. But I think one of my favorite moments is at the end of her last game, her mom was there and they had this moment where they were hugging and you could tell she was just holding her and telling her what a good job she did and everything. And it's like, doesn't matter your age. We still need hugs and reassurance from our moms and our girlfriends and the people in our community.
Totally.
Yeah. It's a really powerful moment. Okay. So 11-year-olds kicking the soccer ball, doing her work. What led you to where you are today? Did you go to college? Or are you self-starter? Tell me about what happened next to get you where you are right now.
Sure. So that strong voice on the soccer field led me to become president of my high school, where I was always on the stage speaking. And I think what happened was, I remember, and this is still in the high school phase, but again, same all girls school, morphing into the high school era. And I remember, and this, you can resonate, this kind of relates to your first question, is there wasn't a lot of spirit in the school. And I noticed it was a popularity contest to be, president of the school. And I didn't want to participate in that. And I felt like I saw who was running and I'm like, that's it. That's going to be our president. She doesn't even have, and she was a nice person, but I'm like, no one's going to get motivated. So I asked a fellow Latina who was a junior 1 year below me, do you want to be vice president? Do you want to run together? She's like, we'll never, ever win. We'll never win. Are you sure? I'm like, who cares? Let's just throw our hat in the ring. And it was a landslide. We were crying. We were so happy. But that was like how you have these times in your life where you're like, you can do it. You do it for the right reasons. You don't do it for the wrong reasons. And that was kind of the first step of, okay, leadership, speaking, and motivating a group of people that believe in you. And so that was kind of the impetus of leading women. And I'm sure you can resonate with this. And then that led me into college. I went to Bowdoin College. I was an athlete at Bowdoin, learned, which was incredible. I think I wrote this in my book, being in the front row in class and raising my hand, and then the teacher calling on someone behind me and hearing this deep voice, because I'm not used to guys in the classroom. Right. It's the hardest thing. I'm like, who is that? And then went into investment banking. I was raised as one of three daughters where girls can do anything. There were no boy jobs. There's no girl jobs. And I always said, I was in a liberal arts college at Bowdoin in Maine. And I had a connection at State Street Bank. And I'm like, oh, investment banking. So I was one of three women out of a team of 30 in investment banking in the mid 90s. Wow. And I remember being in a conference room with a bunch of guys and senior men, and I was an analyst, and I literally had no idea what they were saying. And I was mute. And so the writing was on the wall. And I said to myself, Renata, you need to go and take night classes at Harvard Extension School and learn accounting, debit, credit, learn this stuff on the side. So when you're in a room with a bunch of men who are speaking and talking the talk and walking the walk, you can participate in the conversation. So I think a lot of us women, when we're in male dominated industries, it's our job to get up to speed, to be, whether it's twice as educated, twice as smart, twice as prepared, so that we can actually have a seat at the table. We can participate, we can add value in the conversation and not just be there silent. So that was kind of my first, let's get caught up into this world of finance. And then from there, I actually went and worked after 4 years in banking, worked for this. I was 26. I worked in tech in 99 for the CEO of Reebok, for a online tech footwear customization project where you could get your foot scanned and you'd be able to go into a kiosk, write your name on the shoe and get a customized shoe shipped to your house. So I brought all the number crunching since I had it in banking and got exposed to this amazing world of tech, which back then they did not call it tech, they called it .com.
Right.
This kind of dates myself. And then I'm like, oh my God, I need to be in tech innovation. Let me go back to business school, get my MBA. And so I applied, I got into Booth, Chicago Booth, which is the #1 business school in the world, got a partial scholarship there and focused primarily on new product development, stage gate new product development, which is entrepreneurship inside companies. And so that was my first exposure to entrepreneurship. And that was early 2000s. So again, it's like closer and closer, taking all these little pieces of my life, these moments and adding them, building. And you know this too, like we hope our kids are exposed to this, especially girls, where you just say, okay, I really love this. And then, okay, I don't like this, but I like this. And you keep building on it. And then all of a sudden you get to maybe, I don't know, with the venture capital, now I see how everything fits together. But back then I was just kind of going with what it lights me on fire.
I love that. Go with what lights you on fire. And do you think that, that tenacity that and that natural curiosity you have, is that something you were just kind of born with? Was it I've always had that gung ho, like I'm going to figure this out personality?
Yeah, I think it's more, I think the inquisitiveness, like you said it really clearly. It's a drive. I think I have this inner drive to be a lifelong learner. And I think it's a combination of DNA, what I was born with, and my personality coupled with how I was taught. So maybe nature and nurture combined. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's my parents are like the never give up attitude. Like we don't give up in this family. Like if you get injured in a sport, you're going to go to therapy and heal and you're going to try out again. So it's a combination of the never give up upbringing with a quest for knowledge and becoming an expert. So one of the things I don't like feeling is like kind of what I said, in a room and you don't know what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
Like I get very uncomfortable. So I'm like, okay, I'll just be silent and listening. But in the background at night, I'm like literally studying and because I want to be able to contribute.
Sure. And you are very capable of that. I think a lot of women would get stopped by that and be like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. Why am I even here? And then they get the imposter syndrome that sinks in and everything. It doesn't sound like this one right here. You ever suffered from that?
Yeah, no, I definitely. And you know what's so great? Maybe it's because I think it's because I've always worked in male-dominated industries. I've always been in industry, whether it's an academic setting or an industry, I've always been in very tough environments. I've always been put to the test, like a firing squad. So I'm trained. It's almost like I'm trained in the military. I'm trained to be in a high-pressure situation. I started it from an academic standpoint and then went right into the toughest industries, investment banking, manufacturing, P&L responsibility at age 30, and now venture capital. So I've an entrepreneurship, like I've always been used to being under fire or in just high pressure situations. So anything less than that is just boring for me. I just get bored, and I'm not I don't know. I just like being. And not to be to my own horn, but I mean, I should toot my own
Please, horn. That's why there's this podcast. No way.
Well, I mean, I'm a pretty humble person, but when it comes to, and I'll tell you my journey to VC, just so we tie the knot here. But so that entrepreneurship exposure led me to launching a couple startups. Worked for an entrepreneur. And actually, since we're on a podcast about women, and I'm sure mothers are listening as well, I was in corporate, had global P&L management, which means I was doing new product development for Life Fitness, for CPG companies, for durable good companies, as one of the only females leading mostly male-dominated teams. Like when I say cross-functional teams, that includes software, electrical, mechanical, all guys, finance, maybe one other woman. And then when I got married and pregnant, when I was in corporate, I was like, oh my God, should I get a nanny? What do I do? Like I panicked and I needed more time. And I asked my senior team, which was mostly guys at the time, 2007, can I not travel for 6 months till I get or a year to get used to this thing called motherhood. And they said, no, and I wanted someone else to travel, like a junior person, just for a year. No, you have to take a step down in pay and position. And that's when I'm like, I'm out of here. And that, quite honestly, when people say like, oh, how did you get into entrepreneurship in 2007? I said, I was kind of forced out of corporate because I wanted more flexibility as a mother. Yeah. I wanted to be present with my child and exercising my brain. So I worked for an entrepreneur and then just got the bug, launched an MBA admissions consulting business, scaled that. And then kind of like you in 2000, well, I wrote the business plan in 2012 and then launched Blazin Babes, which is a female founder community helping women. And at the time we were a networking community and we started small. And then it was really helping women in career transition. It was less about founders, but 80% of our women after 2 years, it was almost like an MVP. 80% of them were all either small business, female founders in tech, consultants, real estate. I mean, you name it. And so we pivoted all our programming to support these women. We included PR, speakers, events, very similar to your platform. And now we're relaunching to be more national and less Illinois focused or Midwest focused. Sure. But what's happened is since those days of entrepreneurship, of Blazin Babes, I've noted, and it's not a nonprofit, it's a for-profit. You pay a fee to be a member. I noticed 2 of our women became venture-backed and had exits. And I said to myself, whoa. I want to invest in these women. I don't want to just get their membership fee. I want to invest in these women. So that's when I morphed into 5 years ago, becoming, I call it an adult intern, for scouting for other VCs, taking VC classes, even though I had an MBA from the #1 business school, even though I was in investment banking, even though, finance, I know left and right. Venture capital is an apprenticeship business. It is, if you want credit, and you said it, Renata, you go after everything. You want to be well-versed in every subject. This is what happened. I'm like, no. If I'm going to be in venture capital, I want to have credibility from the entire United States or even global venture capital, which means I need to work for free for the top VC funds. I'm going to bring them deals. I'm going to work for founders for free. I'm going to help them with their pitch deck because I already know how to do that. I'm going to mentor, judge, and scout for all the accelerators. Literally, I did that for 5 years. And so now what's interesting and what I found, especially as a female, or not even as a female, just as any regular VC person, is that I say this all the time. I've said this in interviews. I see the entire US VC ecosystem as 80-20. 80% are used car salesmen, 20% actually know what they're doing. And because, I'm serious, and I'm not trying to be an elitist. It's just because I'm smart and I ask a lot of questions. And so now I know who to syndicate deals with. Now I know who are the people that know what they're doing, that actually have a process in their approach, in their investment approach. I know which regions of the US, their strategies, which funds focus on certain things. So, and the other thing is, this with networking, and especially myself, is your recommendations to other people like Catherine, like you, reflect your credibility and reputation. So if I'm going to make an introduction and you're like, who was that? Right. I want to be credible in this industry. So this has a lot to do with learning that venture capital isn't like, oh, you just go to school and then you get the job, or, it is an apprenticeship job, and you don't really get credibility, or people won't invest in you unless they know. And it's not even just like, do you know how to make an investment? Do you know the right people? Do you have a good reputation with the right people? And when I say the right people, I'm not talking about the flashy celebrity. I'm talking about somebody who's been in event, a guy who's a baby boomer, who's been a VC. Yeah. Does he know that you know your business? Not only that, he or she, do they know that you've put in the time? Mm-hmm. How badly do you want it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, let me ask you this. If someone's listening, and some of BRA members they have their own fund and they are venture capitalists, what mistake, well, no, let me ask you this way. What advice would you give to someone who's about to pitch, about to go in front of you, about to go in front of their first round? They've already done their angel. They've already got friends and family. Like, what's something that you would say, you got to make sure you have this?
Well, I would say the number one thing that I always look for, especially in the early stages, especially if it's after angel investing and they've proven that, okay, people, this is a legit business. What is your why? Why are you doing this? You really need to have a really compelling reason, because one of the things that happens with early stage investing, as we know during COVID, there may be, you need to want it, love it so bad that you're willing to pivot. So if it's not like your baby, this startup isn't your baby, and we can't tell that it is, then that's a big red flag. That's a very qualitative metric to measure, but that's the first thing that I look for. And then, I'm kind of a traditionalist. I like to see a really good pitch deck. And so one of the things that, at Blazin Babes, we actually help train female founders on how to put a good pitch deck together. But if you can, and you're not part of Techstars, or you're not part of an accelerator, or you don't have the funds and you don't want to spend the money, I would not hire someone to do a pitch deck. Is try to look for mentors that could be your maybe informal advisors that can help you, or a fellow female founder that can give you a sample of a pitch deck. See if you can get your hands on one. But I really like to see a good pitch deck, which includes 15 things that, what's the problem you're solving? What's the solution? How big is the market? No one ever has this. Like, what's your business model? How are you going to make money?
Yeah.
And then a lot of people don't, even early stage founders don't put in their financial projections, which I think is important. Like, even if it's going to change, make some assumptions. Like, do you think you're going to get the Walmart customer? Do you think you're going to get, like, what are some of your assumptions? And then who are your customers? Who are your customers, potential customers? Who are your competitors?
Yeah.
A lot of founders, they're very into their startup. I was, and you leave off competitors. Like, you got to because that's part of our job, is what we do at Blazin Babes. We'll literally go and see, oh my God, they're missing 2 competitors. And that's kind of a red flag too. And we'll come back and say, you don't have this person or this company. But I really do think your why and a pretty good pitch deck, because if you're sending an email to a VC, that's usually the first thing before the call. Usually they ask for a deck, and their analyst or intern goes through it, and they have a checkbox to make sure certain things are there. The other thing is really important for founders that are pitching to VCs for that first round of funding is research the VC. Find out who else they've invested in, or research if it's a new VC, like if it's me, or I'm an angel investor, or a VC. Look at his or her background. The other thing is, which is huge, is see if you can get a warm introduction to them.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, LinkedIn, you can go through LinkedIn, but usually the warm introductions are better. You're more apt to get like a call.
Yeah. For sure.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. I love that. I know when I get it, like if you were to refer someone to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd put them at the top of the queue than a cold call or a cold email, now I have the opposite question is, I want to be a venture capitalist. What do I do? Renata, tell me.
Okay. The first thing you should do, I would join angel groups to be able to get access to amazing deal flow and starting to understand what things you look for in deals, but make sure the angel groups are based on what you're passionate about. If it's funding female founders, specifically focus on female founders. The other thing that I would do is start sourcing your own deals. One of the things that I did, and I always tell the story, is I gave up Starbucks for 1 year, and I couldn't believe how much money I was spending on Starbucks. I was spending $5,000 a year on lattes. And I got one every day, like a venti or whatever. And so I gave that up, and I just got the little pods, at home. And, it was hard to switch because of the snooty Renata wanting the Starbucks. But now I'm like, I like the at-home coffee better. I wrote my first angel check out of my own pockets for $5,000. And that's when I always will tell that story. So when people say I don't have money or I can't do it, you can do it. And then the other thing that I would suggest is if money's an issue or you want to just learn how the startup ecosystem works, you can get shares in a startup as an advisor. So if you're really good at, let's say your expertise, you worked in, I don't know, fertility, or you worked in whatever expert manufacturing, you can just be an advisor to a startup, maybe one that you met through one of the angel groups, and get some shares and help them with their pitch deck, help them with making customer intros. That's kind of how you get in the ecosystem. And then maybe they'll say, hey, do you want to put a check into this company? You've worked with us for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Would you like to be an investor? And you say, well, how much would you, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever. And, get yourself, what I always say is get yourself a really good freelance VC lawyer. So they can help. That's really, really important, especially for women, because we get taken advantage of a lot, especially when it comes to finance. And if you know somebody that can recommend, I have an amazing woman in Chicago that she's such an advocate for women, both as female founders as well as female funders, so that they can help you look at what the terms are. What should you get for a $10,000 investment in this type of firm for a safe note? How much equity should you get? What should the terms be? Just so you're not taking advantage of. And the founder should do that as well. If you're a founder, you should have a really good lawyer to make sure that an investor is not taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
But I think the best way is the angel groups. The other thing is there's crowdfunding. You can get access to funding through the crowdfunding, but the best I think is angel groups, and then just writing a direct check into the startup ecosystem. So, and then one thing that's really important, if you want to move into VC and have your own fund, this is really important. And no one ever told me this. I had to figure it out myself, and this is huge. This is like secret of VC, of track record, quote unquote, track record. When you invest in a startup and time goes by, that startup grows or fails. Okay. But what happens is every time they raise their next round, because there's different rounds in raising, their valuation goes up. Every time they get more sales, their valuation goes up. So let's say you got in at a lower valuation, and now a year goes by and now their valuation has gone up. They've had new investors come in. Maybe they have a priced round. You need to show, and you want to launch a fund and show that you have credibility in picking really good deals. You need to show your LPs, limited partners who would invest in your fund, that you pick the winners. Look at the valuation. Yeah. I got in it on day one, and now it's day 360, whatever, 5. And now the valuation has doubled or tripled or what have you. So that's the kind of track when they say traction. And you could be an angel. You don't have to have a fund. You could have your own money, and you can just have an LLC and just literally a pool of money invest. And you've got 100 deals, and you could actually run your LLC like you're running a fund, and you don't have to deal with anyone else's money. You just have to report to yourself.
Ooh, I love that idea. One of the long-term goals for BRA is to create a BRA fund. We want to get the founders to all kind of pool money. We kind of distribute it to the other businesses. I love that. So tell me a little bit about your book. You've mentioned it a couple times. When can we purchase this wonderful thing? And when's the book tour?
Oh, you're so nice. I'm finishing it probably in the next 1 to 2 months. The draft will be done. And then going to start working with an editor and then pitching it to publishers. So that's I've never done this. This is my first book. It's a memoir. It's about my journey of reinvention. And I think as women, we have 9 lives. We can reinvent ourselves a million times over and over again. And it's really about overcoming adversity, talks about my divorce, talks about moving into venture capital, talks about finding your soul purpose, your life purpose, talks about supporting women in different career transitions and life transitions from, into motherhood, out of motherhood.
Yeah.
letting the rope go, focusing on your own self. I know a lot of us put everything into the kids and we don't have anything for ourselves at the end of the day. And that is a mistake, because not that our kids one day will say, I don't need you anymore. I think our kids will always need us, but not as much as the diaper changing days where it's, we're running ragged. But I think we as women have we're faced with a lot of challenges that no one really talked to us about. Our mothers never really mentioned that, hey, trying to have a really lucrative career and climb the corporate ladder while you're being a really present parent and mother and doing all the unpaid labor at home is not easy.
No.
And there's a lot of women that either give up one or the other. And I think Michelle Obama said it really well in a talk she was on. We can have it all, but not all at once.
Yes. I think she did say that. It's very true. It's very, very true. And it can lead to burnout. If you try to have it all at once, it can lead to, sacrificing our own health and wellness. And then we're no good to anybody, at that point. I think it's a really important lesson and that we need to keep hearing it constantly.
Right. And one of the things that Blazin Babes is doing for female founders is that we're thinking about is providing financial support for women who are founders and they don't have a caregiver. So being able to give them money, to be able to either, and if they don't have children, for their own mental health, therapy, exercise. But we feel like if the founder's down, the startup's down. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we're doing is we invest in the whole person, it's not just the business side. We know as a former founder that, and not having the caregiving needs, running your startup, you can't scale it if you're also like, I have to go do all this other stuff at home.
Yeah. You're going to run yourself ragged. That's for sure. So before we get carried away, I want to hear about Blazin Babes. You've teased it a little bit. Like if anyone listening is curious about becoming a part of your community, what do we have to do?
So right now we're relaunching and we're redoing our website. So right now we just have a wait list. So we're creating a wait list, and I actually can give you a QR code that we can scan. Basically, it's a Google Drive that just puts your name and email But what we do is we provide weekly, bi-weekly virtual events across the US for different topics, which is, how to do a pitch deck, how do you calculate LTV CAC, how much, what is some vetted law firms that we should use? Should I be an LLC? Should I be an S Corp? Should I raise debt financing? Should I give away equity? How much equity should I give away? How do I vet investors? How do I vet for angel investors? What's too much, how much advisory shares should I give away? What else? We'll have VCs come on and talk about what they look for, which is great.
So powerful stuff.
Yeah. Some really good stuff.
That's really great. Wonderful. And do you have a website you can share?
Right now we don't, because we're rebuilding.
Okay. Oh, because it's being built. That's right.
Yeah, but you can go to it's a membership portal where you'll log in, and there's different tiers. So you'll get access to different levels. And one of the things we do know that female founders, usually early stage, funds are very tight. So we're going to offer scholarships to 5 women a year. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we are a B Corp. So we're a certified B Corp benefit corporation, which is an impact mission driven organization. And you have to apply for that. And we're going to offer up to 1% of our membership fees to nonprofits that support underserved women. So that's kind of our thing.
I love that. No, I love that. There's a large giving back portion of BRA too. Like all of our events are benefiting a nonprofit that services women or children. So I love that that's embedded. Social impact strategies embedded in business is brilliant. I love that. Well, thank you so much. Now, before we wrap up, we got to get carried away. So the first thing is, what's something you're totally obsessed with? What's something that gets you excited? Is it puppies? Is it tacos like we talked about? Is it money? What is it? What do you get carried away about?
I mean, I get carried away. This is a little crazy, but this is part of who I am, with physical challenges. So I'm a big 4 a.m. person. I think having been an athlete, but I like signing up for challenges. I just love, I just ran the New York City Marathon for the first marathon ever. And I'm 50 years old. So, that was a big challenge. It took me a while to train for it. It's really about, I did an ultra marathon during COVID, which is you run the number of miles per day, given the calendar month. So April 1st, 1 mile, April 2nd, 2 miles, accumulative. Yeah. And
I ran in February.
It was freezing, and it was in Chicago. And, we were doing online learning with the kids, and it was just me, single mom. And I was taking a venture capital class. And so I had to get up at like 2 a.m. and run like 15 miles because my kids needed to be up. I mean, literally I had to fit the miles in. And It was, I think I was the skinniest I've ever been.
Right.
I had to eat like double the amount of food, but it was great because it was less about, let's put it this way. For the ultra marathon, I had to run and walk. I couldn't run all those miles because my body was breaking down, but I learned a lot about overcoming resilience and the mind game, the physical. And I think this is kind of what gets me carried away. If it's a positive thing, it's less about, oh, I did this and a bragging rights. It's more like, when I train my mind to say, if my body's like, I am so tired, I just want to go home. But my mind's like, no, Renata, you have to prove it to yourself that you can do this. I don't care if you have to crawl home or crawl the extra mile. And what that does to me, and I think what it does to everyone, is when you're in your everyday life, like career, like moving into venture capital, you remember back to your mind when your body was going to give up, and your mind talked your body out of it. So I feel like that directly correlates and reflects things that happen outside of those physical feats. When our mind says, I can never do that. And all of a sudden you're like, no. If I did that, if I ran that marathon, then I can do this.
Absolutely. It's so true. It's so true. I love that. Wow, I could never run a marathon. Good for you.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You should. You should.
Okay.
You really should. Do it. You start baby steps.
Okay. And now the opposite of that, what is something that you can't stand that people get really obsessed with? I'll give you an example. I don't like football. My husband doesn't watch football. I don't like it. I don't like, but people are obsessed with football.
Okay. This is actually perfect because you now I know what to say. I could get slammed for this, but I'm going to say it. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get slammed. I don't like, when I applied to college, everyone's like, oh, are you going to apply to the Big Ten? And, I don't like people who are just fans of the Big Ten, like, or even just like fans of a sport. Like, I'd rather play the sport. So people who get obsessed, like it's like football and these fans, and they're like, if I'm going to go to an event like a football game or a basketball game, unless it's maybe a sport that I played, I only go for social reasons. Like and I want to make sure, okay, is it going to be like in the box seats? Are we going to have like alcohol flowing?
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah. Can I dress up? Like, I don't want to be I go for socialization. I don't know. I just feel like I don't understand the fandom thing. And I
don't understand the tailgating part of it. Like, when did this like debauchery of behavior?
Yes.
How is that related? Like, it just seems really frat boy energy. And that's
what it is. That, you know what? That's what it is. And I think I just don't understand fans. I don't know. I've never been a fan of a celebrity. I've never been a fan of an athlete. I've never been I'm never a fan of a sport. I mean, I don't know. It's just, but everybody's obsessed with it. I mean, and I invest in sports tech. So I get it that it's a huge thing and people will pay, but I mean, I'll go to a game, I'll go to a soccer game. I'm going to the US Open in New York because I played tennis. I'm a tennis player. And am I a fan? I'm a fan, but it's because I played. I don't know. I just don't, people are obsessed, and I just can't stand it.
Yeah. I love that. Nobody's ever had that answer.
Oh my God. I feel terrible. No.
Well, thank you so much for getting carried away. If you are listening to this in your car, on your walk, maybe you're running a marathon, who knows? Please pause and like and subscribe and share this with someone who is interested in venture capital or just hearing a great story. Thank you so much, Renata, for joining me. And thanks for getting carried away.
Thank you.